Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to Committee as a Whole for Human Resources and Education on August 6, 2020. Ms. Coakley, could I have the roll call, please?
Mrs. Page,
Present.
Mr. Green, Mrs. Heinz, Mr. Derman, Mr. Loop, Mr. Harrell, Mr. Nation,
Here.
Mrs. Richardson, Mr. Winkler, Mrs. Drucker, Mr. Bentoncourt, Mrs. Lamy, Mr. Hersey, Mr. Bro, Mr. Kuzan.
Please stand and join us in the pledge and invocation led by Ms. Heights.
Thank you. Would everyone please bow their heads? Father, be present with us as we meet tonight. Lord, we know you are a steady guide. We are thankful that you are always there, pointing out the way you want us to go. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda are the announcements of administrative appointments. Interim Superintendent Jabbia.
Thank you, Ms. Page. I'm over here in the bullpen. Thank you very much, board members. We have an excellent group of appointees for tonight. I'm very pleased and honored to present them to you. They're going to do an awesome job. I know just about every one of these personally, and one I just met recently, so I'm really, really excited about this group of administrators coming in. So first off, our new principal, this is a one-year temporary position at Bonnie Cole Elementary, is Miss Julie Lupo, and she's currently assistant principal at Carolyn Park Middle School. Julie.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Jabbia. Thank you, Ms. Lemaine and Mr. Casey and the board for this appointment. I am so excited to lead Bonnie Cole into the future. As I look around this room, it looks a lot different than it normally does, and our school year is going to look a lot different this year. But I know with our strong leadership in our parish, it's still going to be fabulous. I wanted to thank my Tiger family at Seidel Junior High. Mr. Mackin really allowed me a lot of leadership opportunities there, and my parish-wide experiences and all the administrative teams that I worked with really helped me grow as a leader to be here today. And my experience at Carolyn Park with Tamika Smith last year was amazing, being her assistant principal and her teammate and just growing as a leader. My why, my family, my boys, my mom and dad have made me the person that that stands here today. I'm so fortunate to have been able to blossom as a teacher, as a leader, and as a person. I'm beyond humbled and excited at this opportunity to lead Bonnie Cole. All three of my boys who are here went to Bonnie Cole. One is still there. Blake will be there with me in 5th grade, and that's super exciting. I come with high expectations, a supportive soul, and a positive attitude to work with each and every person that comes through the doors at Bonnie Cole Elementary. Thank you.
Julie, Mr. Bro has this expensive Rolex watch for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the new assistant principal at Fontainebleau High School. He's former administrative assistant at Fontainebleau High, Mr. Christopher Nelson.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be standing in front of you today to accept this position as assistant principal at Fontainebleau High School. I'd like to thank a few people if I could. First of all, Mr. Pete Jabbia, thank you for this opportunity. I also like to thank the school board, in particular Mr. Brandon Harrell, for attending the interviews. I do appreciate you taking a little time out your day to do that. My principal, Mr. Johnny Vetrano, I've had a lot of principals before, and he's by far the best I've ever had, and I appreciate your confidence in me. Thank you, boss. And last, of course, my wife, Lenore Nelson, our math curriculum specialist here in St. Tammany Parish. She's been with me every step of the way, and without her, I certainly wouldn't be up here today. If I could just take a second to express my appreciation to St. Tammany Parish Schools for all it's done for me and my family. In particular, my two sons have been through St. Tammany Parish Schools. They are thriving today as a result of their experiences, both curricular and extracurricular, in St. Tammany Parish Schools. I've been in school districts all over the state of Louisiana, and I can tell you from top to bottom, St. Tammany Parish Schools were the best. I would just like to take a second to talk a little bit about Fontainebleau High School. You know, this morning I was coming up 100 Bulldog Drive, and I stopped and looked around for a second. I said, you know, this is a special place. And you look around, and you look at the school plant, and you know that, but it's more than brick and mortar. It's what goes on inside those classrooms. It's a direct result of our excellent faculty and staff, who I'm privileged to work with. But even more important, that's our student body. Because our student body are the reason why we have the test scores we have and have the awards we've won, extracurricular awards we've won on the local, district, and state level. It truly is the best school in the best school district. Our motto, Optimus Optimorum, the best of the best. And I'm honored to stand before you today and proud to say, I'm Chris Nelson, Assistant Principal, Fontainebleau High School. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Next, we have our new assistant principal at Lakeshore High School. I'm pleased to announce, and she's former TRT, Technology Resource Teacher at Pitcher Junior High School, Miss Sandy O'Brien.
Good evening. Superintendent Mr. Jabbia, Assistant Superintendents Lemaine and Mr. Kosei, board members and guests. I am honored to be appointed as the assistant principal at Lakeshore High School. During my 25 years in education, I've had the opportunity to work with many amazing leaders. Some of them may be with us today, and I certainly don't want them to go unnoticed. Thank you, Dr. Tillman, Ms. Rosalind Hanson, Ms. Terry Meyer. Also, Ms. Lemaine, I remember that conversation many years ago at Folsom Elementary when we sat and said, we're going to pursue our degree in leadership. Thank you for then. Mr. McCurley, although I only worked with you for 1 year, you had a significant impact in the educator that I have become. Your leadership, professionalism, and guidance allowed me to look deep within and to pursue this opportunity. It was hard to leave a Covington school. Miss Gerald, thank you for seeing my strengths. Thank you for understanding the passion that I possess for students, education, and our school system. I also want to thank my friends and family, my parents who invested in my education, my brother who's always had my back, and my family, Kathy and Callie, for always understanding and supporting my dedication to the students, school, and community. I'm ready to win the day at Lakeshore High. Thank you. Sorry, my Rolex.
I took a little peek inside. Let's tell the media that it's really not Rolexes in those bags, okay? So don't print that part. Thank you. Our next appointee is Ms. Lauren Fashon at Lyon Elementary, Assistant Principal. Lauren is a product of our parish-wide Assistant Principal program. Lauren, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Superintendent Jabbia, Mr. Kosei, Ms. Lemaine, school board members for believing in me and granting me this opportunity to be the next assistant principal at Lyon Elementary. I'm beyond excited to continue leading this amazing school with Ms. Burkett. I would like to start by thanking the administrators and staff I had the opportunity to learn and grow from last year as a parish-wide. Ms. Stant, Mr. Burkhart, Mr. DeCarlo, Ms. Lacoste from St. Tammany, and Ms. Burkhart at Lyon. All of you have taught me so much about being an administrator. I can't thank you enough for the time and knowledge you shared with me. As most of you know, the students of Covington Community have been my love. I spent many years at Covington Elementary as a third grade teacher. My students there are the reason why I decided to begin this journey as a leader within our district, for they are the ones that taught me what teaching was about and helped create the leader in me. I'm forever grateful for the support I was given from Ms. Eason and Ms. Wingett, the faculty, and the students. I would also like to thank my family and friends for their never-ending guidance and encouragement. I truly could not be standing here without the overwhelming support. To my daughter, Corinne, you have been my biggest cheerleader throughout this entire journey. Thank you for always reminding me that anything is possible if you put your heart into it. Thanks for being my rock. To my Lyon community, when I received the call back in January from Ms. Lemaine about me filling this position, I thought to myself, wow, how could this really be happening to me? After the first few days there, I quickly learned this is where I want to be. After this, I knew this was home. I knew it was in front of me. Now I just had to win it. Ms. Burkett, we have established an amazing cohesive relationship in just 6 months. I'm looking forward to many years learning and growing together with you. Thank you, and God bless.
I don't know whether to take the mask off and leave it on, but hey, I just want to tell you there's a huge bouquet of flowers in this bag for you.
You saved them?
Yeah, I saved them. They're not real good looking right now, but when you put them in water, they'll revive. Absolutely. Congratulations. And I know your heart and passion is at Lyon, so we're so proud to have you. So good luck. And write all your notes in there.
I will.
Congratulations.
Our next appointee comes to us from Bogalusa. We're very fortunate to recruit her this way to St. Tammany Parish, and we're very pleased to welcome our new assistant principal at Magnolia Trace Elementary, Ms. LaRobin Houston.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to stand before you this evening. It was very important for me to make the move to serve in the community in which my own 3 kids, I was about to say 2, I have 3. The last 2 came as a package. But it was very important for me to serve in the same district that they attend school. When I enrolled them here, we moved here from Lafayette, the Lafayette area. We stayed there for about 1.5 years, and when we moved back to the North Shore, we decided to plant our selves in St. Tammany Parish. And when my kids started school, I knew that eventually this is where I needed to call home. I'm so grateful for that opportunity. I bring 17 years of experience, 9 of those leadership experience, and I'm just grateful to serve under an amazing principal. I've only met her for about, a week or 2 now, and I'm just in awe, and I'm excited to be able to serve under Ms. Revere. The school is amazing. The teachers that I've met so far have been amazing, and I'm just so grateful to be here. I want to say a big thank you to my husband, who, for whatever reason, he believes I can do anything in this world. I don't know what gave him that idea. But he has been by my side through this whole ordeal. And I came from a principal position, and if you know anything about leadership, it is really hard to leave a school that you're leading, but I knew that this was the right decision for me and for my family. And again, I'm grateful. Thank you again, Mr. Jabbia, Mr. Kosei, Ms. Lemaine, for the opportunity, and to the board. And I'm going to make you proud.
My next appointee is almost like my daughter. I think I've known her since she was a toddler, and her mom and dad. We're so pleased to have Mary Catherine, the name of my granddaughter, but she goes by Katie. Katie Turner is our new assistant principal at Mandeville Junior High School.
Thank you, Mr. Jabbia. That means a lot to me. Good evening. Hi, everyone. I am so grateful to be standing here in front of you. I have such a deep respect for this school system. Like he said, I was just a toddler, and my father would head off to come to these meetings all the time. So I have a deep respect, much so. So thank you. Mr. Kosei and Ms. Lemaine, I appreciate this so much. I want to thank my principal, Gina Cruz, for believing in me and choosing me to go through this with her. I think we're going to be a great team. I think we'll be very successful. The mentors and the former principals that helped me to become who I am and grow, Ms. Kachera and Ms. Donna Addison and Sherry Jones and Jennifer Westcott. They all had a hand in helping me become a good leader, so I'm very grateful to them. My husband, Larry, for putting up with me and being so supportive and being there for everything. And lastly, my parents, just for helping me get molded into a wonderful, person that I try to be. So I am very grateful for them and all their support. My dad was the first principal of Mandeville Junior High, so it means so much to me to be there as an administrator. So I'm very grateful. So thank y'all so much.
Congratulations. I know you'll do a good job.
Next appointee is the new assistant principal at St. Tammany Junior High, and she served for a number of years as the TRT at St. Tammany. Please welcome Karen Dufresne.
Good evening, school board members, central office, family, friends. Thanks for this opportunity to show my gratitude for this appointment. I want to especially thank my principal, who I've worked with for the last 13 years. I truly, truly appreciate your belief in me and your support through all this time. And then these are my rocks right here, my two daughters, who've always been my cheering squad. In fact, y'all are going to, this is a high school teacher here in this parish, and this is soon to be one. But I want to thank you because this is a long time coming. In fact, it's been 26 years, a dream for me to get to this point. I have had the pleasure and the privilege to touch the youth of our community for that long, and I actually consider it a ministry to be able to touch that many lives in that length of time. And now that I'm going to be the assistant principal, that's a blessing as well, because now I can touch my community in a larger capacity. So I am eager, excited, looking forward to this year and many years to come. And I thank you for this opportunity. It truly means the world to me.
Our last appointee for tonight is the new assistant principal at Woodlake Elementary and another product of our parish-wide assistant principal program, Ms. Nicole Messina.
Thank you, Interim Superintendent Jabbia, Mr. Kosei, Ms. Lemaine, and the entire school board for having the confidence to appoint me as the new assistant principal at Woodlake Elementary. 1 short year ago, I was offered the position of parish-wide assistant principal. I'm not sure if you recall my words, Mr. Jabbia. But when I received that call, I said it felt like I won the lottery. In saying that, you can only imagine the excitement I felt when Mr. Alfonso called me just a couple of weeks ago to inform me that I was selected as the assistant principal of Woodlake Elementary. I was overwhelmed and speechless for once, because at that very moment, I knew that I had found home. I've been an educator for the past 21 years and have had the pleasure to spend 15 of those years at Whispering Forest Elementary. I will always cherish my time spent there in the classroom and will always be grateful to my former administrators, Mr. Sachs and Miss Leonard. Every effective teacher knows the importance of building relationships with their students. While serving as parish-wide assistant principal, it became very evident how important it would be to build those administrative relationships as well. The parish-wide position was an incredible experience. It allowed me the opportunity to train under some of the best administrators in St. Tammany Parish. Every experience was unique and extremely beneficial. I would like to take a moment to quickly thank each school in the administrative team. Sidell Junior High, thank you, Mr. Mackin, Coach Wills, and Mr. St. Cyr. Lee Road, thank you, Ms. Fauntleroy, Mr. Montleon, and Ms. Smith. Bayou Lacombe Middle School, thank you, Mr. Morris and Ms. Rich. And certainly last but not least, St. Tammany Junior High, the campus where I spent the majority of my time as parish-wide assistant principal. Thank you, Mr. DiCarlo, everybody knows, for going above and beyond every day. The parish-wide position truly pushed me out of my elementary comfort zone and challenged me to think outside of the box on a daily basis. I am certain that I am a better educator, a stronger administrator, and a much more aware parent because of the parish-wide experience. I would like to thank two principals that will always be the most near and dear to my heart, Mrs. Kay Fortenberry and Mrs. Christy Wingett. Mrs. Fortenberry was the principal that took a chance on me 16 years ago and gave me the opportunity to begin my teaching career in St. Tammany Parish. Miss Christy Wingett, my new principal, thank you for choosing me to help lead Woodlake Elementary, the Woodlake Elementary team. I'm very excited to be working for you, and I look forward to a fantastic year. From a personal standpoint, I'd like to thank my mom for always supporting me, and of course my two children, Nicholas, a 6th grader at Lake Harbor Middle School, and Perry, an 8th grader at Fontainebleau Junior High. Always remember, with hard work and a dedicated spirit, dreams can come true. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to this opportunity.
From the faculty and staff for displaying it at Woodlake. You have that, okay? And then on behalf of the St. Tammany Parish School, we're welcome to Woodlake and Manville.
Thank you, Ms. Page. That concludes the appointments for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Jabbia. I just wanted to say congratulations to all of our new administrators. Outstanding. That's just great. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break in order to dismiss you all about 5 minutes. Then we'll start up again. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for staying for our meeting. First thing we need to do is to see if any board members would like to recognize any visitors. Do we have anyone that would like to recognize any visitors? Mr. Nation?
It's not so much a recognition of a visitor, but I would like to recognize our superintendent, Mr. Jabbia, and also recognize Mrs. Linda Begay, who is not here tonight, of course, but Mrs. Begay is the president of the Mandeville Republican Women, and she reached out to me, a couple of weeks ago to ask me to come speak to the Mandeville Republican Women today at their meeting. So Mr. Jabbia joined me, and I want to say what an outstanding job he did. And so anyway, thank you, Mr. Jabbia, for the great job you did. And he even got a couple of rounds of applause. So from the, I think they were glad to see me leave. I think from the Republican Women of Mandeville. So thank you, and thank you, Mrs. Begay, for all your support.
Thank you, Mr. Nation.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Nation. Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of a minutes for committee as a whole held on July 2nd, 2020. Do I have a motion on the floor? Mr. Green, do I have a second? Ms. Heights, do I have any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Vote, please. 12 yeas, it passes unanimously. Next, Human Resources. Mr. Jabbia, do we have anything for Human Resources?
No, we did that a little earlier with the
Yes,
announcement of
sir.
the appointees. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Okay. Next, Curriculum and Instruction Update. Mrs. Lemaine.
Got it. Just to know if it was something you needed to do or I needed to do. All right. Good evening, Ms. Page, board members, Mr. Jabbia. Tonight, I have another update for you on how we're progressing with getting ready for the upcoming school year. The first thing I would like to review with you is our commitments that we make. We are committed to providing STPPS students with engaging continuous learning experiences, social emotional support, and balanced nutrition. Our next priority is providing for the safety and well-being of all district employees and students, as well as preventing the spread of COVID-19 in our school communities. We know as a school system that our essential work, the work that we do, is certainly providing engaging learning experiences for our students. However, we also know that our number one priority is the safety and well-being of our students and staff. I wanted to bring to you a calendar update. With the last meeting that we had, we certainly had that recommendation from the board that we amend our calendar, and we've had discussions since then with the Federation. And I know that you all are aware that we've updated the calendar, but just wanted to go ahead and share what that looks like publicly. We would begin then on September 8th with our Safe Start Days, and that would run through Friday, September 11th, 1/4 of the students attending each day. And we have those broken up by last names with the alphabet. And then also on the 14th, September 14th, would be the first regular day of school for all students based on what phase we are in at that time and which model we would be following. The Safe Start Days, we know we've discussed before, but just a reminder that those will give time for in-person learning for our students to basically learn those routines and procedures that go along, that we're going to need to have in place with the upcoming school year. And we would be administering diagnostic tests during that time. We do have a 30-day window to complete those, but that will certainly give us time to get started on that. And then we'll also monitor those bus counts to see where we are at the end of that week. That week will also provide time for our virtual school will also follow the same calendar and following the same quarter alphabet. With the virtual school, we'll have virtual orientations following that same schedule from September 8th through the 11th. And then again, on the 14th, beginning that first regular day for whichever model they've selected. So learning models by phases, just to remind everyone, right now we are in phase 2, and with phase 2 we have pre-K to 5 as traditional with all of our students going face-to-face, and then the 6 to 12 being the hybrid model, following that schedule of Monday, Wednesday, and every other Friday or Tuesday, Thursday, but depending on which cohort. And the point that I wanted to make with this slide is that right now, we know that Phase 2 has been extended to August 28th, but certainly we'll continue to monitor that to know where we are upon the start of school, depending on the phases. So looking at a safe and healthy start for students, just to give you a little bit more information of what that's going to look like, what students can expect when they return to the classroom. So on those Safe Start Days, we are going to share with them training videos, and they're going to have training on hand washing, the wearing of mask, social distancing, and other safety precautions. Also, too, teachers will be sharing with them classroom procedures that will need to be in place, and also, too, what learning protocols will be in place for both the in-class learning as well as the distance learning, kind of setting that learning plan for those students. So on a typical day, for students, the health and safety measures will begin at the bus stop, that when they arrive at the bus stop, there'll be social distancing that will be expected to be in place. And when they board the bus, we know that we're going to have social distancing, the hand sanitizing, and also that students will be wearing masks for the appropriate grades. That's grades 3 through 12. When students arrive at school, again, they'll have hand sanitizing, there will be a health screening, and as well as a temperature check. Part of the daily schedules that we'll have in place at school will include the frequent hand washing, hand sanitizing, and also the cleaning and sanitizing of the surfaces and making sure that we have all of the social distancing practices in place as well. And that's why I think it's so important for us to have those Safe Start days with 1/4 of the students, so that we can, really have that time for that direct instruction with students and expressing the importance of those procedures and what that looks like throughout the school campus on any given day. Our virtual school, just to give you a quick update, currently we have about 1,800 students who have registered for the virtual school. We also have about another 1,000 students who are in the online registration portal but haven't actually, clicked that submission button. So we have about 1,000 pending, but 1,800 that have selected that option, and we'll continue to monitor those numbers. Also, to share so that parents can hear that we do have a virtual school website that's posted through our school systems website. And on the virtual school website, we have a virtual school handbook. The course offerings are listed. There are also frequently asked questions, demo videos that are available for them to see what the learning platforms actually look like. So certainly a wealth of information that's available, and that's through the school system's website, or to go to that directly, it would be www.stpsb.org/virtual. So that will give them, just a wealth of information to help them if they're, still trying to make a decision whether they're going to choose the brick and mortar or the virtual school as their option. So a safe and healthy start for our employees. I wanted to give you a little update of what we have planned. So when teachers and staff return, the first thing that's on the agenda is to make sure that we have training on what those health and safety protocols are and what needs to be in place. They will also be receiving a classroom Safe Start kit with supplies, and I'll go over that in just a minute. But that training that they're going to get on day one would include safety protocols, instructional videos, and also what the school-wide procedures are going to be for them to implement. The second day of training would be then on the teaching and learning, putting that health and safety first, then on the teaching and learning, and that's going, into more detail with the distance learning, the lesson plan development, those who, a lot of our teachers have taken advantage of the virtual professional development that was previously posted for them, but those who haven't would have an opportunity to complete that Google Classroom training, and then also to having the time to really set up their classrooms and prepare them, because we know that their classrooms are going to have to look much different, and so there is work to be done there. And also those additional days will give them time to develop those lesson plans to accommodate that hybrid model. And even in the lower grades, we want to make sure that we're incorporating that distance component, even though they'll be at school face-to-face, that we are, supporting that as we move forward. So a classroom Safe Start kit is going to include items for each teacher, and those items will be hand sanitizer, face coverings, face shield, touchless thermometer, that's for those health screenings, They'll have disinfecting and sanitation supplies, paper towels, gloves, tissue, marking tape so that they can mark, the 6 feet or the space for the student's desk. And also classroom signage that would, promote the hand washing and, the sneeze into the elbow and, the wearing of the face mask, all of those safety protocols that we'll be training the students and the staff on, that we're going to provide them with the appropriate signage. And not only would that be for the classrooms, but, the schools will also be receiving that as well. But just to give you an idea of what teachers will be receiving on day one when they come onto campus, and everything that they're receiving in that kit is going to be partnered with the training that they'll be receiving as well. So at the last meeting, we also shared with you the school year planning guide that has been put together and is posted on our website. And I just basically wanted to remind everyone that this is still available on the school system's website. We are continuing to update and expand and add to that information as we move forward. So certainly a great resource, for parents and community members and, even employees to go and get the most up-to-date information that we are continuing to work on this. So in moving forward, some of the considerations that we have, certainly, we are committed to us having, a safe start to reopening our schools and supporting our staff as well as the students as they all return. Some of the considerations that we have, we're continuing to monitor the number of students that we have that are enrolling in our virtual school. We are compiling the results of the transportation questionnaire, because we're wanting to make sure those bus capacities, where we are with those, as well as the class sizes, and updates on Chromebooks. Right now, I think Lewis said we're at about 13,000 Chromebooks that we've received, so certainly we still have a little ways to go. But, keeping up with that as those come in and making sure that we're preparing those devices to get them out to the schools. And we'll continue to give you updates on that as well. And with the enrollment of the virtual schools, certainly looking at what our staffing needs are. And certainly we will continue to monitor what phase we're in so that we'll know where we are when we reopen school. So that's all that I have.
Great, Amy. Thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation. I really enjoyed that. It's very thorough. I have a couple of questions, and I'm sure school board members do also. My first question is, how is the lunch going to work at the elementary school level and then at the high school level?
Right.
Or
So
junior high, high school level?
Right. And Mr. Kose might want to jump in on some of this too, but I know that Ms. Muntz is currently working with the food service managers at the schools, and that certainly they'll have grab-and-go options, especially with the schools that we have hybrid, that, we'll have students at school someday, and then some days they'll be distant, so that we'll have grab-and-go available for students when they're during the at-home days. As well as when they're at school.
Right. I guess what I was referring to, Mr. Kuzan, is so a student usually goes to lunch 5th hour at the high school level or junior high level. So does he go to the cafeteria, get his food, bring him back to his, is that how it's going to occur?
We don't have a cookie cutter plan for looking at across the 55 schools. What we do have right now is our field managers working with the cafeteria managers and the principals to devise their specific plans for each campus.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Of
Because each campus
course, we
is
still
different.
have to keep, the 25 in a cafeteria, so it's going to be maybe a combination of rolling through there or a delivery. And it depends on the individual school and that plan they come up with. They've got to get that to us soon, so we know before, of course, opening day, what each school is going to look like.
Yeah, I was just curious because
Yes, ma'am.
students have to take their masks off to eat. So that's going to be a real kind of vulnerable time.
Correct.
So
We have a
just-
lot of logistical
Yeah,
things
yeah.
we're working on.
Sure.
For instance, if they're eating in the classroom, that's a lot of garbage that we were not used to getting out of a classroom.
Didn't even think about that.
We've ordered giant carts to deal with that. So we're trying to work all the parameters out
Sure.
that we're dealing with. Yes,
Thank you. Okay, another question. And then we'll go to Miss Lamy and then just work ourselves around. What about school nurses? I know that this has been brought up in several school board meetings. Has there been any more thought about hiring more school nurses for the fall? Or I really think it's a security issue with our school nurses.
Right.
I think it's critical that we have as many as we can.
Absolutely, and that's something that we are looking at. Just
Good.
today, as a matter of fact, I met with our lead nurse, and we are looking to, hire a few more nurses to try to give additional coverage out at the schools. I mean, we're not one-to-one, but certainly trying to reduce the load, and that the schools will have more access to nursing staff, so yes.
Good, great, thank you. Okay, Miss Lamy? Sure.
Sorry, if I could add to that.
Sure.
We've partnered with Ochsner, North Shore, and we're looking right now the possibility of the contact person could be a registered nurse, that we would work through Ochsner to get that, to help us when our principals have an issue, whether it be an employee or a student, that this is the person they can contact. We really want to take the decision out of our employees. We're educational people. So for these medical things, we want the medical professions to lead us and to tell us what we're going to need to do. So we're trying to set up some type of mechanism where principals will have a contact person, such as this nurse, to call, along working with our nurses, and then let them guide them through that particular case, because each one of these is going to be a case-by-case basis, where they've been, who they've been in contact with, and then all of those are going to lead to different decisions of what needs to be done, either with the student or with the employee.
Okay.
But in answer to your question about the nurses, we have definitely been looking at that. I worked with Amy today on that.
Good.
The possibility of us picking up maybe 2, 3, 4 more nurses. But we only have 29 nurses, so if we get one for every school, we need 26 more nurses, and that's quite a burden on the budget. So, but that is something we're looking at, and maybe in the future that'd be something we can look at through the budgetary process.
Great, thank you. Okay, Miss Lamy?
Thank you. And thank you for asking that question. With that, and I'm not sure if this is something that you can answer or not, I do know that the nurses' schedules have been changed a lot. And so some nurses that have been in one feeder system for 12 years dealing with the same kids that grow up, go to the next, with medical situations already, or have been switched to different schools now. And I'm just trying to understand the reasoning behind that, because I know we have some children that have some serious needs.
Right.
And so
I know that some of the changes that were made were to make sure that the nurses had schools that were in close proximity, so that if they did have 2 schools or more, that they were all in close proximity, so that if there was something that came up at one school, they would be within 5-10 minutes away.
Okay.
So
this
that
one's
was
actually further than
yeah.
what I'm thinking of. So
And-
I guess I can talk about that specific
Right,
one.
and
I
there
just
will
wasn't sure.
be, there will be subsequent changes, because, we just
If you
had the
get new
conversation
nurses.
today about hiring some temporary, full-time, as well as some temporary part-time to help out, to reduce some of that
That's
load. So some
great.
changes are still to come.
That's
So we'll
awesome.
be working on that.
Because I know I did have a couple of phone calls from constituents last year about their specific situations, but they weren't in any way related to COVID. So I'm just thinking
Right.
adding that to the picture, it probably would
Right.
be important.
But the key is, when nurses have multiple assignments, that they are in close proximity
Yes.
to the schools.
Right,
So that's the
absolutely. And I think
rationale.
it's important that we try to, if we can, like I know with the one I'm thinking of specifically, if they can grow with the kids, that probably makes so much sense when they've been dealing with them from an elementary level with health concerns all the way up,
And sometimes scheduling allows that to happen, but when you start making changes, sometimes things
doesn't.
cannot, yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then the next question was for the virtual teachers. You were saying that depending on the numbers, if we have to get more, will that be something that we look at our pool of teachers for instead of hiring outside, or we're going to hire outside?
So right now, we really haven't talked about hiring any additional.
Right.
So it may be that we look at, people in different roles, and can they, people maybe who aren't doing direct instruction in the classroom might be able to serve in some of those
I got it.
roles.
Okay.
But- Right.
I remember, okay, now I just remember us, we talked about that before. I just
Absolutely.
remembered, okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Kuzan? Did you have anything?
I had one question. I piggyback on what she said. The teachers who have medical issues, have it been considered to place them in a virtual situation if they can't be in a regular classroom?
We're going to have to look, Mr. Kuzan, to see the number of students that's going to be reporting to our schools. But right now, that's not an option. I think we would have a flood of teachers that do not want to, maybe for whatever reason, report to the school, that would want to work at the virtual school. Right now, we're just going to have to wait and see how that comes out, because I don't know any surplus of teachers that we're going to have.
How are we determining the teachers that work at the virtual school?
Right now, we have teachers that we hired back in June with job fair that are working at the virtual school. And, you know, certainly the numbers that we have is something that we're going to have to monitor, but also too, with the numbers that we have out at the schools, you know, the last thing I think that we want to do is pull teaching staff from a regular school and then 3 or 4 months down the road, if things change and the student population, you know, goes back to the school, then we would have, you know, situations where we wouldn't be able to appropriately staff that. So I don't know that we would really want to pull staff from the school to create an issue probably in the middle of the year.
Yeah, Mr. Kuzan, so we posted the positions. It was posted as virtual school teachers, and those were at the job fair, so anyone that wanted to apply for that could apply for that, and then we had teachers that were chosen from that pool.
I have one more question. Can you
Go ahead.
update me again on the Chromebooks? I know you said we had 13,000 that have come in.
That's what, 13,000.
And what's the status of the remaining numbers that we need?
Let Lewis give you that.
HP has changed the delivery model. Instead of us getting 25,000 the third week in August, we're receiving 3,000 to 4,000 a week. So we've started to receive them. So to process 7 through 12, we'd need about 20,000 Chromebooks. So we're hoping to get that many before school opens, but I'm hoping I can get all of them. And we have the orders actually for 35,000, and we already had fourth and fifth grade. So we'll have somewhere close to 42,000 with all the teachers and students when we're all said and done.
Thank you. That's it.
Mr. Green?
Thank you, Ms. Page. Just back on the teachers, I'm just curious, not to open up this can of worms, but if teacher decides that they're not going to go back to work at a school, what happens at that point?
They have some options, depending if they qualify under the new federal law, under the extended paid sick leave, or through the Family Medical Leave Act, it's the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act. They can get the emergency paid sick leave, they can get up to 2 weeks of full pay. It does not come out of their regular sick leave. If it falls under the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, they can get up to 12 weeks. After that, they can use their own time, or they can apply for certain types of leaves. They may qualify for a sabbatical, they may qualify for what's called extended sick leave, they may qualify for a leave without pay. That's the options that they would have.
Thank you, Mr. Jabby. And then can you walk us through what the temperature checks look like in the morning? You know, you've got buses dropping off and, you know,
Right.
bottlenecks at entryways. How are the temperature checks going to work?
Right, so the temperature checks would be able to be conducted at the classroom door by the classroom teacher, and you saw when I went over what was in the kit for the teachers, the touchless thermometers. Each classroom teacher would have one of those and be able to do that prior to. So basically, it would be a continual flow that the student would be going straight to the classroom. So it's not like they would be stopping and interacting along the way, practicing social distancing, and that would be at the classroom door. So that way we could eliminate the bottlenecking, as you mentioned, with taking temperatures as they get off the bus.
So like at an elementary school, the kids show up and they're not going to an outside recess. They're going
Right.
straight to homeroom. And if
Correct.
they've got a temperature, that kid's pulled aside immediately
So
and then
the teacher
red
would,
flags
right,
and-
they would be at the door doing the checks. And so then, and sometimes if they're hot, because it's hot, we're in, we'll be in early September, then they would wait 5 to 10 minutes and do a recheck to see, because, if they're just overheated from being on a hot bus, then, it would come down. And if not, then, take the next step.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry, and included in the planning guide, we worked for a couple of hours this morning. That's going to be expanded. It's going to include the employee returning to work and the students returning to school, and going to have flow charts to say what happens when certain things happen and where they go, so parents will know. But to let you know that we do have a sick room available. We're creating a backup sick room because we don't want to put more than one child in there. But if somebody fails the, for lack of a better word, the temperature check, or they've got symptoms, they will go to the sick room. Immediately, the family will be called to come pick them up. And then we will contact Oshner, who will in turn contact our regional public health director, and we'll get guidance on what the parent needs to do with the child and what we need to do at the school level.
Great, thank you. Mr. Brown, did you have any questions? Yes, Mr. Brown, did you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Okay, from your numbers, we have 5 to 8% of the total 39,000 people signed up or possibly signing up for the virtual school. I know you probably don't have the numbers right now, but could you somehow tell us how many are new or how many are being removed from? I know the vast majority must be students that were with the system last year, but.
Right, we are getting some, and I don't know, because a lot of those are still sitting in the registration system, but what I am doing is getting daily updates on the counts at all of our regular schools, monitoring those class sizes. So, and I mean, things, so yeah.
Because we were trying to attract other students.
Absolutely, and there are some, yes, but do I know how many? No.
I
because-
didn't expect you to answer
I know.
that. I'm just,
But
it's
as
a
soon
curious
as-
thing
right.
that I'd like to follow up on later.
Absolute, 100% agree with you. And as soon as all of those numbers stabilize and they get all of the applications processed, and then those that are pending actually, pull the trigger and submit, then we'll be able to nail all of that down for sure.
And then a related question to that was, well, last year we had like 39,000. Do we have a handle on how many people? Because I've heard stories of, I just mentioned that we may get new students in, but I've heard stories of people leaving the system as
Right.
well. And so I'm wondering, do you have a handle on increase, decrease?
It looks like we're kind of level based on, what's in the online registration and, looking at what the enrollment looks like in our regular schools. Right now, in the regular schools, the numbers look low in the kindergarten grades, but that's where we have a lot of the new registers that are in the online registration system. So it looks like we're kind of flat. So,
Okay.
but that's just my best guess based on looking at those two pieces separately and putting it together.
All right.
Mhm.
Now, in high school, are there prohibited classes? Because I heard early on that choir and band, and obviously the sports aren't going on, so is it going to be the regular schedule, so many,
Right,
7
it's not-
hours of
right,
courses
it's-
a day?
So
Can you
like-
explain that a little bit
So
more?
chorus, I mean, it's not going to be prohibited, but singing inside is going to be prohibited during the phase 2. So I mean, and there are other things I know that the teachers will be able to do with students, that are along the lines of that curriculum. Like, for example, if you're in PE, you may not be engaging in physical activity in PE class, but certainly you can learn rules for certain sports or, just thinking back to my days when I was in PE, I know that there's a written piece to it as well.
I know, we had to learn the history of basketball,
Exactly.
when it started, who started.
Exactly.
That kind of stuff.
So-
Okay.
I think to answer your question is, the regular schedule will be run with all the classes, but there are going to be criteria, what we can do and what we can't do in some of those. We were on a Zoom meeting today with the state, and theater was one that came up, and so there's no singing. They can't do any of that. They have to limit that to just monologues, that type of thing.
Gonna hurt the
So,
musicals.
no blowing of the instruments inside. All of that's got to be done outside. Mike, can they blow the instruments outside?
long as they're socially distancing.
Socially distance that, and the vocal, that's gotta be outside also, or social distancing, can't do that inside. So it's so many restrictions on all of this. But as we told you before, we're probably gonna be running, Amy, I hope I'm not stealing your thunder here. We're probably be running some type of block schedule for the 6 through 12, which simply means that the periods are gonna be longer. So you don't meet every class every day, every time you meet. So let's say Monday's group may meet first, second, third, and fourth, but each of those will be approximately hour and a half to 2 hours long. Okay, so you double up on your classes because you don't get to see those kids every day. You only get to see them twice a week. So by the time you see them twice, you will have had 4 to 5 lessons you would have covered, just like you would have covered in a normal week by seeing them an hour a day for 5 days a week. So we're gonna run some type of block scheduling where Mondays, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Wednesdays, 5, 6, 7, 8. Make sense?
It does in a way, but I, in my email that I sent you earlier about a recommendation from a teacher, I think it's important that we don't go 4 or 5 days without seeing a student. So if it works out that you're still seeing that student two times a week, I think that would be fine.
Yes, sir. We're gonna see one cohort Monday and Wednesday, the other cohort Tuesday and Thursday, and then on Fridays, every other Friday, they're gonna alternate. Okay, so you're gonna see some of them, you're gonna see them 3 times that week. The next week, you'll see them twice.
Okay,
Okay.
that's all I have.
Mr. Betancourt?
Thank you, Mrs. Page. Ms. Lemaine, for the virtual school, are they going to have any type of virtual extracurricular activities?
Yes, we are working on that. It will be limited because, of course, it's a virtual setting, but they're looking at National Honor Society, Student Council, those types of things.
Key club, things like
Right,
that?
things that they can do virtually. So it will be limited, but I'm sure that will grow over time. But we do have some of those essentials that we're going to make sure that we offer because we know that that's important to some of our students who are trying to build those transcripts to apply for universities, so.
And all the other schools have, mascots, lions and tigers and bears, and oh my. What about a mascot like that frog that's been virtually invisible in St. Tammany Parish for the last 50 years?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I haven't talked to Ms. Morris about that, but I know she has been working on lots of different things to try to bring, a fully inclusive model to the virtual school and, and doing a great job. So if she hasn't thought of that, you've just given her an idea, and I'm sure that she will.
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt. Mr. Winkler?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Page. What happens if a student or a teacher in a classroom tests positive?
So I know that was what Mr. Jabbia was just talking about.
Well, we're not gonna know that they tested positive. Once we find out they test positive, they're gonna let us know, and then they won't be allowed back to work. And that's when we're gonna call Oshner and then our regional medical health director, and they're gonna guide us. We're gonna find out who they were in contact with, how close they were in contact, did they have a mask? We have to give them all those details, and they're gonna make that decision. But basically, number one is they're gonna be quarantined, tested positive. Then we'll have to find out if anyone else is gonna be involved. But those are gonna be case-by-case basis.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Winkler.
thank you.
Mr. Harrell?
I got just a couple of questions. First, I know you got a lot of teachers happy about the scrubs, so thank you. I'd like to thank y'all. I know y'all been working really hard together, trying to come together as a team and get all this information out there. A few things that I was thinking about with the Chromebooks. Do we have a rank on how they're going to be distributed? Is it going to go like 9th, 11th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and teachers, and then 7th?
Right, some of our teachers already have it, and certainly the teachers will, and we're going to start with the high schools and work down. Louis, do you want to give more detail on that?
The 4 through 6, the teachers already have them. They've been using them all summer. A high school, you can't give it to one grade within a high school because you could have every grade level sitting in one course. So we're going to do the whole 9 through 12. So we'll deliver entire high schools at the same time. And then we'll work backwards into 7th or 8th, then 7th, 6, 5, 4, and we'll go down that way. But we'll do entire high schools at one time. And we're hoping, because we need the space, that we can start moving the Chromebooks that we've already received and configured to the high schools in the next coming weeks.
But the teachers in those schools would get them too, everybody would kind of have them at the
Yes.
same time? by
Yes,
the
once
school?
I have enough for the students, I'm gonna start giving the teachers, as soon as that I can, I'm gonna give them to them so they can start training before school even starts. But I've gotta make sure I have enough for the students first.
Perfect. I guess one of the other things, like student safety, I guess, with teachers not seeing the students regularly, is there anything in place to kind of catch issues that may be happening at home or any, since they're not seeing them every day?
Right. Well, and certainly the students would be there on certain days and staying in close communication, and also to, we have our MHPs at the schools, and they'll be doing the, that mental health, they're going to be on top of that and communicating with the teachers and looking for signs and symptoms of, if there are any concerns. And that's really the nice thing about having full-time MHPs at our schools, that we can stay on top of that. But also too, with that Google Classroom platform, there is also interaction that can go on between that student that's at home and with, the teacher that's back at school. So it does have that capability as well.
And also
So-
with them having the blocks where one teacher might only see them once a week and then another teacher, is there any communication with just in between if they see something?
Right,
or-
they'll be able to communicate and reach out to the teachers for support, especially, that instructional support as well, which is going to be key, so.
Okay. And are there plans for refill on the Safe Start kit?
Right, absolutely, we do. We have a plan in place for that, and a process where they would go about requesting those supplies. Staff has done a really good job with that.
Perfect, thank you.
Ms. Heights?
Thank you, Ms. Page. Mr. Bouillon and I had a conversation before the meeting began, and he just used the word configure. So I just want to thank his staff, because it's not just getting the computers in, he's got to configure them and get them ready to go out to the schools. So I know that's a lot of work, and I really appreciate you and your staff. I know that's full-time.
It is.
Thank you so much.
It is, and
Sounds
on
like
top
it.
of that, he's helping out, he has the online registration that
Sure.
they're manning. I mean, there are just lots of things that they jumped in and helped out with, so we appreciate that.
Thank you, Lois.
Great. Well, speaking of the registration for the virtual school, do we have a deadline for that?
We do not at this point, but that is certainly something that we are looking at, just because simply we need to know what we're planning for. So we are looking at penciling something in so that we can determine what the needs are going to be.
Good, thank you so much. And then my last thing is just a comment that putting a plan that that you all developed online has been a big help for everyone to look at. And I think the frequently asked questions being updated with some new questions and has been very helpful to the community. And I want to say thank you so much for those efforts.
And a thank you to Meredith and her team for, continuing to put these documents together for us and keeping them up to date, because certainly without them and their efforts, it wouldn't happen. And and it goes back to when we closed on March 13th. Without her and her staff, we wouldn't have had curriculum online either. So we worked closely, and they put a lot of hours in as well.
Well, thank you all so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Mr.
Page.
Durman?
Thank you, Ms. Page. Ms. Lemaine, couple of questions. Talk about maybe the grade level configuration on breaking, at the 5th grade and 6th grade, as far as, all-day learning and the reasoning or rationale behind that.
Right. So we have to operate within the guidelines of Bessie, and the class sizes come into play. When we have to do the, like, we're limited to 25 in a classroom, that's including the teacher, so that would be 24 students plus the teacher. And so when you start with the sixth grade level, we have larger class sizes, moving up from 6 to 12. And then also, too, looking at the scheduling, a lot of our schools with sixth grade have schedules that those sixth grade teachers are a part of that master schedule. They also teach seventh and eighth grade students as well, and trying to separate out a sixth grade schedule from seventh and eighth grade, is something that's a bit problematic. So that's why our sixth grade is at that split. And also, too, because of the class sizes. I mean, we're constantly monitoring those numbers each day. And when you're looking at, you've got 28, 29, 30 in sixth grade classes, whereas like at the fourth and fifth grade level, most of our classes are between 20, they're around 21, 22, 23, 24, so they're right at that mark. So I'm keeping a real close watch on those, but that's why there's the break there.
Okay, and a follow-up question to that, just a guess, but I mean, the number of schools that we actually had that were sixth grade may be the last or the highest grade level at that school site?
Right, so like grades 4, 5, and 6, you're talking about like the
Right.
middle schools. So in those schools, the sixth grade is probably like a teaming situation or self-contained. However, that's where you're also looking at the larger class sizes as well, for some of those middle schools. And keeping in mind that we have the transportation, that buses also can only operate at 50% capacity. So that's another factor that has to go into it. And so when you're doing that hybrid for sixth grade, that's going to give you a little relief at those schools too, as well with the bus capacities. So just trying to manage those numbers to stay in compliance with what Bessie has given us.
Well, good, and that's a good lead into my next question with the transportation. Looking at our other older grade levels and our limit capacity on our buses, how is our transportation looking? Didn't we do a survey here a week or so ago?
Right, the transportation survey, I think they got those results, I think that closed on Monday, so they're compiling all of that information and certainly looking at it, and we're working with Mr. Bodie. I know that we're looking at last year's, bus routes and loads and trying to match up what the response that we're getting from parents with those surveys, as well as taking the information of those that are choosing the virtual option to see to try to anticipate what our bus capacities are going to be with starting this school year out. And then also to remember, we have those safe start days where we have 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, that we're going to do those bus counts. So hopefully all of that, we're in good shape at the end of that week. But if not, if we need to make any adjustments, then we'll have an opportunity to do that as well. Again, making sure we're in compliance.
With that transportation survey, did it also include, questionnaires about, the parents actually bringing the child to school and dropping them off?
Right, that's correct.
And if so, if those numbers escalate, and God knows we got traffic problems all over the parish, and then car lines, we don't need road rage in car lines, but I'm just saying, it may be even greater than what it has been in the past, so.
Right. And that's the other thing, too, that I know that we're working with the principals and looking at and trying to make sure that we're addressing ways that we can make sure that we're being very efficient with our car lines and, loading and unloading as many spots as we can and increasing that and just being super efficient, because we know that there are going to be increases to those numbers, and want to make sure that we're not increasing that amount of time that it's taking to unload or load, both in the morning and the afternoon, and trying to manage those, the social distancing and maintaining those static groups. So lots of details that are going into that, and so we're working with principals on their campuses and looking at ways to make all of that happen.
And then one last question as it relates to the transportation. We were talking about hiring more nurses and whatever, but what about, our police officers that we have at the schools? We have one at each school, but when we're talking about multiple car lines possibly dropping off, or what about more law enforcement people to help with traffic situations?
We'll look into that, Mr. Darman, but for your information, all employees will be on duty every day. So if that makes any sense to you, it's meaning that The earliest a bus can drop off students is 30 minutes prior to the first bell. And we're gonna hold the parents to it on Carline that the earliest they can drop off a student is 30 minutes to the first bell. But all of our employees are gonna be at school 30 minutes before the first bell. All employees, not just our duty teachers. And that's something that we've worked out, and I do wanna recognize Ms. Green is here tonight, President of the Federation, and her and her group have been very cooperative, and the relationship that we have has been going real good, because we not only worked on the calendar, but we worked on a lot of different things because of the change that had to be made, because every employee's calendar had to be changed, their work schedule, when they report to work, when's their first day, when's their last day. Some employees had already begun working. I had to send all of those home because we did not want to work them longer than their calendar. So all of our teachers are going to be on duty, so they're going to be monitoring car lines, they're going to be monitoring buses. As those kids get off the buses and get out of the cars, they're going to be going directly into the school, into their first period or homeroom class, where they'll be temped and assessed. And then we'll start first period once we get everybody done. So, and then also the employees are going to be working after school to help us get those kids back on the buses and back in the car line. It's not going to be an easy thing. You're bringing up a lot of stuff, and it's good that you're bringing it up, but those are the issues that we've been working on and trying to deal with and trying to figure out. But we don't know what it's going to be like. This is a first for us, but we're going to have the appropriate personnel there. We're going to have a lot of professional development, and we're going to get everybody ready for opening day.
All right. And I understand about, our person.
Oh, and we're renting 6 more buses, Mr. Dermott, so
Good.
in case we need to add some additional routes. Was it 6? 10 buses, I'm sorry. Look at that.
Good. There you go.
George got 4 more on me, and I didn't even know he done it.
He's a happy man. But my main concern, it wasn't so much what was going on our campus. It could be traffic related off, on the roads to help.
We're gonna
the
get
flow.
Mr. Donald, we're gonna get Mr. Donald to work with those agencies.
Because it's all the
just to let
different
them know that about the
municipalities,
increased traffic.
the
Yes, sir.
sheriff and everybody, because,
Yes.
I mean, we could be very efficient on our campus, but if we can't get somebody to let them out on the highway, it's just gonna snarl up.
We'll
that's-
work with those agencies,
And
yes,
that's
sir.
my point.
Yes, sir.
And I know y'all it's like a moving target everywhere, so every time you do something, it changes. So I understand the difficulty in trying to figure it out, but I appreciate everybody's efforts.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
a
you,
lot
Mr.
of
Durham.
work and a lot of time by everybody involved, so much appreciated.
Thank you. Ms. Richardson?
Thank you. I would like to piggyback on Mr. Durman's comment. I would be remiss not to thank central office and everyone's work that they've done, from media to IT to curriculum, transportation. I do not envy you at all. As a board member, I have received several emails or phone calls with some questions, and I wanted to first start. I know you said right now you don't really have numbers, but I would like to know, as far as a comparison from this year to even last year, is there an increased enrollment? I know you said somewhat flatline, but in order for us to get enough computers to the right kids, we've got to know where those numbers are falling. And I know we've got several kids that have chosen families that have chosen different alternatives for their children. So can you speak a little bit more to that?
Right, and that's why, right now, we don't have a deadline for the virtual registration. So we are looking at establishing a deadline so that we can have those firm numbers, because we do know that some folks are still trying to make a decision one way or another. So the numbers are all in there. It's just a matter of how they're going to flush out as far as, do they decide to transfer and go to the virtual school, or do they stay at their home-based school? So that's when I say that, overall, when you look at the total, the numbers are all there. So we're not losing numbers per se, but it's, do they ultimately choose, like that 1,000 that's pending, do they go back to their regular brick and mortar, or do they go to the virtual? So that makes sense.
On the flip side of that, how are we doing with the teacher staffing? I'm just interested to know, are we fully staffed, or are we experiencing any shortages anywhere?
So are you talking about in the brick and mortar schools?
Just in teachers,
In
I
general?
would just say in general, I suppose brick and mortar, that would be the
So-
most high risk. So
Right.
is there a decline in, or?
So right now, we're fine right now, but I mean, moving forward, we know that things are subject to change, but right now, we're good.
So you're good to?
Yeah, I think we're going to be good. That was one of my worst fears going into this.
Right.
Was our staffing. We're getting some who are applying for leaves because of their health situation or they're in a compromised situation. So, but we're working with the principals. A lot of these are like temporary type leaves, just for a short while. So we're hoping that we will be able, we've opened up our substitutes again with the principals, so we're trying to get more people in to do that. Not a lot of substitutes want to come in and go to work in the school zone right now, but we're trying to recruit as many as we can, so we think we're going to be okay. We have ancillary personnel at the schools, that will have to pitch in if we're running shorthanded, because we've got, music teachers and art teachers and PE teachers, so we're gonna use everything that we can to make sure that our kids are educated.
Very good. And then I did want to personally thank you for explaining in detail just the K-5 brick and mortar concept and why and why sixth grade was
Right.
considered for the hybrid, because I've had a lot of questions. Hey, why not K through 5? Why can we not have the hybrid model? And the things that you discussed make sense to me.
Right.
So I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to explain that. But the block schedules, Mr. Jabbia, that you mentioned, will that just go back, or either one, this is the assumption that when we go to phase 3, though, we're going to go back to traditional scheduling. Is that correct?
That is
Yes, ma'am.
correct.
Oh,
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
I want to be clear
This is only to
because
get us through this pandemic, okay?
understood, and
And we're going to continue to monitor, the numbers and the class sizes and those things. And if we're able to expand in any way, we certainly are going to do that.
right, the programs such as PE and just discussing rules, I'm just going, wow, okay, that's a huge shift. And then from music and band and such, just the accommodations, I just wanted to stress, especially to the public, that this is really just till we get through to transition 3 or phase 3. And then for our teachers, I know discussion has been made about just options for those with the medical sabbatical or extended sick time, all those different things. Will there be reasonable accommodation for teachers that do have compromised immune systems and they do want to come to work? Is anything being done for them?
The only thing that we do is reasonable accommodations in regards to the Americans with Disabilities Act. So if they have something going on and there's a reasonable accommodation that we can make for them, we certainly will. They just need to provide us the documentation, which we do in every year, not just this year. But that's the only type of accommodations that we will make.
Right.
Like, it's just not going to be room for everybody to say, I can't go into the classroom, can I work from home?
Right.
Or can I just be in the classroom by myself with no kids? We just don't have that flexibility to do that. So we're going to work with our employees. Like I said, if it's a reasonable accommodation and through the ADA, then that certainly we will accommodate them.
Then, of course, moving to my next, and thank you, Mr. Jabbia. I do applaud your efforts, and I can't even begin to imagine just the plethora of decisions being made. And I do understand that there's going to be a huge learning curve as the first days of school unfold. And with that, it naturally segues to the employee calendar that has been pushed out, as in the emails and calls again, just received from teachers with questions and concerns. One of the questions they had asked is this the final calendar then that the parish is going to push out for them regarding work days and holidays? And
Unless we have different directive from this board, that's our plan. Let's please not change again.
No, I'm not interested in that. I'm not even
Okay.
suggesting.
No, this is the final calendar as far as we're concerned. This is what it's going to be for 2021.
Right, and I think some of the questions in it, you actually brought it up, it was about the duty, questions about their duty and that they're going to be working more hours technically. And quite frankly, I understand that given the circumstances. So I understand that everyone needs to be on duty before school and even after, and I appreciate the effort to make sure we're fully covered, especially initially until we figure out a healthy pattern. But I know that they had expressed concern just about the sheer number of hours, that they expressed something to the tune of going from 7.5 hours to 8.5 hours, and then am I understanding that they do get a half-hour break?
So in the cases like with planning periods,
Yes,
we're anticipating that they would still be able to have those planning periods because if, like at the elementary level, the planning periods come from your music, your art, your PE, those
Yes.
types of things. So at that level, those teachers would be pushing in to those classrooms, so they would still have those breaks during that time. And then when you look at the departmentalized of the junior high and high school, then their planning periods would fall whenever they don't have classes that are assigned during whatever periods. So in knowing when you're running a hybrid schedule that some days you may have extended planning, whereas some days you may not have any. But, it's like when you have testing week at school, it's all hands on deck and
That's
everybody
right.
kind of pitches in. And so our administrators are certainly going to make it work with their additional staff that they have and give them breaks as they can.
Right.
So we're
And
all, yeah.
Let me just express, I understand the need for all hands on deck, and I respect that. I understand that.
Right.
These are just simply questions that have been
Absolutely.
relayed to me. And if I missed this, please let me know. But the question, they said that there's, teachers have expressed holidays that they're not getting as a result of the new calendar. Did I miss that, or?
When, yes.
Okay, I
I
understood
don't know
this-
if you missed it or not, but in order to get in the days that we got in the calendar, there were some holidays that were eliminated.
Okay,
Okay, we eliminated Parish Fair,
okay,
one day. We eliminated 2 days at Thanksgiving. Debbie can help me. 2 days at Thanksgiving. We eliminated the 2 professional development days one was at the end of the first 9 weeks, one was at the end of the third 9 weeks. Now, that was not a holiday for teachers, but there were no students. So now we're making students come those 2 days, so we're able to pick up 2 days there. At Christmas, we added on 2 more work days before you actually left for the winter break. For Mardi Gras, we did away with the entire week. So all of that now is all of those days are work days. And then for Easter, we left Good Friday, Monday, and Tuesday, but the other days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, are going to be work days. So that was the only way to do it without going into the summer, which would have really created a lot of issues, especially for our seniors. So we tried to steer away with that, and I worked with Ms. Green on this, and this was the best decision that we came to together.
And am I correct in also saying that there's no extension, though, to the school year? They're able to end as scheduled, and.
We did not affect yes, we did not affect the end date of the school year.
Right.
Teachers' last day is the same, students' last day is the same.
Well, that's impressive, given the delay start. So that is all my questions, and I just want to end by saying thank you again to everyone who's worked very hard to make all these very difficult decisions.
Mr. Nation?
Thank you, Mrs. Page. And Mrs. Lemaine, I want to begin by saying what I said a couple of weeks ago at our board meeting, that how much I appreciate you and your staff and Mr. Jabbia for all the work you had put in to the plan you had set before us, and to get our kids back in school. And actually, the teachers would be back in school now. The kids would be starting back next week. But that wasn't meant to be. But the question, I guess, is kind of like what Ms. Richardson asked. How confident are we that even September 14th will be the first day of school?
Based on the calendar that we have, that would be the first
I mean, since we
regular.
had the calendar's already in place.
Right.
Initially. I mean, we were already prepared to start that calendar had already been
Right.
approved by the Federation and by us, or accepted by us. So I guess, how confident are we that that's going to be? I hope it is, but, since, but I guess that's up to others. All right.
Do you have any other questions, Mr. Nation?
I do. Approval of the
Thank you.
calendar. Normally, the calendar is approved by all of the teachers, but it's my understanding that the Federation chose not to do it this way. Is that correct?
So with the calendar, I know Mr. Jabbia worked with, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, so the normal process is that there is a meeting with Federation representatives along with parents and staff members that develop 2 or more calendars that go out for the employees to vote on. That's done, we're now doing those 2 years in advance. So we're a year ahead of everybody when we do those. But then there are things that we have to do that's almost like an emergency type situation. And we do what's called a memo of understanding with the Federation, and an agreement with the Federation, is that we work with their executive board and our, if you want to call it, executive staff that meets with them. And this is what we did. And I'll be very upfront with you and tell you that I went through the calendar, me and Mr. Kosei, and we came up with what we thought would be the best plan before we met with Ms. Green. They actually had more holidays that they cut, and so we were willing to, of course, go with that because I think we had only cut 2 days at Mardi Gras, and they cut the entire week. So it was just a combination of us working with the Federation of what we thought would be the best thing to where we could start September the 8th and end May 21st for the students. I think May 24th is the last day for our teachers. That was the best plan that we could come up with so that we could do this. But in answer to your question, the normal process, the employees would vote. But there were no employees in session at the time, and we normally do this through an email vote. Lewis is I'm not going to say rigged that up for us, but he's fixed this to where we can vote by email. It's a simple little email, and you get it, and you vote yes or no, or calendar A or calendar B or whatever it is. So we didn't have that capability, so we agreed to do a memo of understanding, which we do on a lot of other things. Okay. And included in this memo of understanding is going to be some other items that will be coming to the board and letting you know about those also.
Thank you, Mr. Jabbia. And the last question I have is regarding the virtual school. I had understood, maybe incorrectly, that would start at our original approved start date, which would be next week, but has that been pushed back as well?
So to keep all employees' calendars in alignment.
Gotcha.
So we're gonna, right. So it'll be on that same schedule. So when we do the Safe Start, that'll be when they start, they do their orientations based on the alpha and full regular day. So it would match.
Gotcha.
Okay,
And-
great. Oh,
Well,
You said
one
it
other
was your last
question.
question.
I'm sorry, one other question. Do you have any sense of what the private schools are doing in terms of start dates? Or is it a mixed bag?
Okay, Ms. Nation, I have a question there for you because we're talking about our public schools here. So how is the private schools? Because it's totally different enrollment, different students. I
haven't heard anything about any private schools, but I do know that other school systems, are starting to delay their start till after Labor Day as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next, hold on, Tammy, we need to go ahead, dear. She has another presentation. So we'll go ahead and go, and then we're going to ask questions about her presentation. Ms. Lemaine, your presentation, pupil progression.
Okay. Right, pupil progression plan. So, I'll go ahead and get started on it. So we are required each year to update or at least review the pupil progression plan. This is required by Bessie. And with the pupil progression plan, part of it is required by the state and part of it is local policy. So we have an advisory committee that meets each year. And you can see here listed all of the members that are on that committee. We have representation from our school administrators, parents, teachers, as well as I see there's a guidance counselor on there as well. Melissa Strataberger from my department and Amy DiCarlo are the two supervisors who work with this committee each year. And so I'm presenting on their behalf. So we have our timeline for pupil progression. And basically, just so for those of you, just to kind of give a little recap, pupil progression basically determines how students promote from one grade level to the next, or if we get students from outside of our school system re-entering or entering the school system, let's say maybe from homeschool or from a non-accredited school, then it establishes what the criteria is for those students to enter and what grade level they would enter at. So the timeline that this committee held, so we started, of course, on time back in February, and we received administrator input through an electronic survey. Then we received additional input and feedback from our administrators at a principal meeting. And then you can see after March 2nd, there's a big gap in time. And we all know what happened there. So we picked back up in June, where we again received input from the committee, and this was from the advisory committee, because we knew at that point in time that that really, considering a lot of changes to pupil progression, maybe it wasn't the right time, because we knew that there were already a lot of other changes going on and that we had to address with closing out the year and then moving forward to the next school year. So we actually posted for public input as well, and we did receive some public input. The advisory committee met on August 3rd. We did that via Zoom, and they reviewed the input that we had received from the public. And they, again, decided at that time to not add any new language to pupil progression. However, there are some policy changes that we still have to make based on state policy change that would amend the pupil progression plan. So the first one being placement of transfer students. One of the criteria when students are entering either the 5th or the 9th grade is that they're required to take a state placement test, and that kind of aligns to that 4th and 8th grade LEAP assessment. So which would mean going into the 5th and 9th grade. And this past school year, we know that those assessments were waived, so therefore the state is waiving that requirement that students entering in grades 5 or 9 be required to take those assessments. So that's one of the changes, and if you would note that that is just for the 2020-2021 school year. The second state policy change is one that's a little more permanent, and this has to do with credit recovery. So we do run credit recovery in our high schools, and this is when students, do not pass a course. They've acquired that seat time from the first round of taking that course, so they're able to go through a more expedited credit recovery model to make up some of that unfinished learning and to gain that Carnegie credit. So what the state is doing in this change is that they're capping that they can only earn 2 recovery credit units per year, and during their span as a high school student, they're limited to 7 credit recovery units. So that would be the second state change. So for the local policy, the advisory committee is recommending that we retain the 2019-20 pupil progression plan as written for the 2020-2021 school year. And of course, if there are any subsequent changes that would need to be made, we would come back to the board. But for now, we think that we're fine with what we have, and that the only changes that would be made would be those state changes that we're required to make, so no local changes at this time. And we would need a motion from the board to accept those. And just another additional piece of information, that the pupil progression plan is available on the school system's website under the parent tab, and there's the menu on the left-hand side that's in alpha order, and you can see pupil progression plan.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. Is there a motion on the floor? Mr. Bro, is there a second? Ms. Heights? Board comments. Ms. Lamey? I thought we'd... Okay, well, we still have to make comments on this. Do we have any comments down here on this side? Okay, on the floor, any comments? Over here? Do we have any comments from the public? Okay, vote please. 12 yeas, the motion passes. Do we have any further business? If there's no further business, I declare this meeting adjourned.